Welcome to Better Together.
A place where we dive deep into everyday subjects.
We are your hosts, Julian
and Carolina, two psychologists that travel the world and are very excited about the whole human experience.
So without further ado, let's dive into the episode.
Welcome to the new podcast episode, which is going to be a quick update over the last 2 weeks-ish. More or less.
We were thinking of topics and then we realized, well, we actually could do just a diary entry of what we've been up to, because that's a topic in itself. There has been a lot going on, and we felt like sharing.
And we started we're going to start with the most profound thing in the beginning, which is the progress and the change that happened in the last 2 weeks concerning your speaking business.
Carolina's speaking business. When you say you, it could be like the listener or...
Fair. In case you have a speaking business, listener, maybe there was progress. Please mention. Please let me know. Otherwise, no, it's yours, Caro's.
Yes. So, I don't remember if last time we already said it, but in the Nomad Fest that we were in Bulgaria, I had a talk. And it was a talk in a big stage, in the biggest stage that they had. And the biggest stage is a stage I have spoken in so far in my life. So
with the most people as well.
With the most people. It was like, maybe it was 100 people, but the place had room for 500. It was pretty big. And it was very interesting. It had like the lights and the microphone, like the one that you put next to your mouth that you don't hold in your hand. It had the clicker so you can change the slides super smoothly. I had a carpet I needed to stay within the perimeter of, and I was being recorded and transmitted live on Facebook. So there were a lot of elements to it, and it felt like a big jump from me talking to a group of people, maybe 40 people, to 100, and in a big stage with all of the fancy schmancy stuff.
And let's go a little bit into the process of it, because this was a big step in the career that you're in right now. And how was it when you were preparing for it? How was the week before?
Yes. I think a few days before, I started to get really nervous because I didn't have my talk down. I had to hand in the slides a week prior, so I just crafted some slides, but they didn't make much sense. Like, I wasn't super happy with the structure of the talk. And then I had to come up with a talk that was coherent with the slides. So I basically had the spine of the talk, and then I needed to come up with the content, the meat. So for as long as I was trying to make it coherent and make it look nice, sound nice, I was really nervous because I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off. I wanted to do a really good talk. I had pretty high expectations of myself, as usual. And I didn't have the results. Like, I've never done it before, so I cannot prove that I am able to do it in this time frame. And I was making progress, but it was small, slow progress. And every day I was just coming up with a new story, a new arrangement of the slides, of the stories. And it was stressful in the beginning because I couldn't round it off. It always felt like it was more like a lecture and not really like a keynote. So yeah, I got really nervous because I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off. And for 2-3 days, I was anxious. And then I realized, okay, I need to do stuff. I'm just going to meet with people and do stuff normally, because if I just stay in my room and think of the talk, I'm just going to get more and more nervous. And then about the day before, I came up with the final talk. I was like, okay, today I come up with the final talk because I need to practice it a couple of times before actually delivering it. And yeah, I put myself that deadline. So I practiced it. I created the final talk, and I practiced it a bit twice, I think. Once in front of Julian. And then I felt it was like, okay, this is fine. Also around the time that I said, this is the last iteration of the talk, this is the talk that I'm going to give, I also realized it was not about me. That was a really big shift. Because before I was really nervous because I was thinking, I'm going to flop, I'm going to suck, people are going to fall asleep or get on their phones and not pay attention. And I was making it about the experience that I was having and not the experience that the audience was going to have, and why I was giving this talk about intuition. The topic of the talk was using your intuition when traveling. And in the talk, I would go through different stories of how intuition appeared in my life, then defining intuition, then explaining how you can use intuition and where it comes from, and then finally just a case study of a situation where I would use intuition, and then it led to awesome things. And that was the final structure of the talk. And then I realized, wow, a lot of the things that I'm saying are actually spiritual stuff, that it's pretty woo and pretty out there. And I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for the message. I feel like there's a message that needs to be shared. I feel like people need to have a space where they can connect with their intuition. And I made it my mission to create that space. And that's when I got settled. When I, for one, had the product. the product, the talk was ready. And I was like, okay, I'm not changing it anymore. That was one point. And then the other point was, this is not about me. This is about the message and the people that will listen to the message. I want to make them feel something. So that was the preparation, pretty intense. And then afterwards, the morning of the talk, that was like super close to the the actual event. I practiced. No, I didn't practice anymore. No, I was like, no. That morning, I put music that was very shamanic. Julian left the room, and I started dancing and calling upon my ancestors and Pachamama and every spirit that I would think it's kind and that could help me on the way. And I called everybody in, and I was like, okay, we're doing this. Okay, we're doing this. Please guide me, speak through me, and support this talk in whatever way you seem that you deem useful or relevant. And that was the preparation. That was the before the talk. So before the talk, I was maybe 2 hours of doing that, becoming a woo-woo, a woo-woo person with Palo Santo candles, dancing, and calling upon my ancestors. And then I went to the stage, and I was sitting outside waiting for the previous speaker to finish, which he wasn't finishing on time, and it got me a bit nervous, but it was fine. And then I went there very confidently. I spoke to the people that would handle the mic, like the technical part. I asked their names. I connected with them. And then they presented me and called me up on stage. And as I was walking up on stage, I was like, oh, this is the time where you get nervous. And then I was realizing I was not nervous. I was good. And at some point, I wanted to almost sabotage myself by saying something stupid as the first thing that I would say when I'm arriving on stage. And I was like, no, shut up. Like,
What did you want to say?
like, oh, hello. I don't know. Like the moment that you step on stage and you see all of the people there, you're like, "Wah! What is this? What have I done? But in that moment, I was like, no, stick to the talk, stick to the plan. And that required a bit of courage to actually start with the thing that I thought before.
Because it was right in there. It was like right jumping into the story.
Yes. It wasn't hello or we're going to talk about this. It was like in my mid-20s, I thought I had life figured out.
It's just
And that's how my talk started.
like a book opening, just
Yes.
getting right into.
Just starting a page.
And there was the man lying dead on the ground.
Oh my God. Yes. I took that from actually literature, that you start with a line that immediately hooks the reader. And I was thinking the same. Like you can start with a big question or stats or something. I was like, no, I'm going to start in the middle of a story. And that's how it began. And I just started to go with the flow. And it took me maybe a couple of sentences to find the right position of the mic. I moved it around because it was like, it was catching my breath. It was like, and I was like, I don't want that. That sounds awful. So then I just moved it around. I got settled on stage pretty fast. I realized I was not nervous, that I was doing this, that this is what I'm made for. And then I just continued.
You were so confidently walking on this tiny carpet from right to left, making your points, saying, oh, I'm going to leave the house and walking to the other side of the carpet. And
Yeah.
it was all, honestly, as if you'd done like 20, 30 of those speeches already.
Yeah.
That was what,
Yeah.
like, so interesting to see that, like, I think nobody expected that. And everybody was telling you, that looks like a TED Talk. Like, you have previously done that. You have made your preparation and you've like dedicated yourself to this. And that's how it looked. And it was quite impressive. Like I saw you before in the room and, talking this and doing this a little bit. And then you were on stage and you put your chest out. You were standing straight. Tits out. And then you were just really confidently walking there and telling your story. Completely fine with taking a pause, with calming your voice, and then jumping back into the story. And I was like, that's impressive.
Yeah. I was surprised. I was surprised that I was very thankful for all the spirits I called upon, because they actually probably shielded me from all the nervousness in the environment. And I felt the responsibility that when you're on stage, you are the one that's setting the tone for the room. And if I heard also some big speakers say it, that your energy, if you feel nervous, then people will feel nervous. So whatever you do, just like be confident on the stage and just get people in a bubble that they become submerged in whatever you're saying. And I was doing it, and I was realizing it was working. I was like, I'm telling a story and people are listening. And they were really listening. Like, you can see, you can feel.
You can see whether they're in front of their computer and having their phone in their hand or not.
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
Yeah.
But then there's the one that you see that they're looking at you, that they're intently listening, paying attention or thinking like for themselves something. And that's how it felt. And I was so grateful that people were paying attention and that the right people were in that talk, because I can imagine that it's more difficult if people are not paying attention. But it's the speaker's responsibility to make the talk so interesting that people cannot overlook it. And I started talking, continued talking in the middle. Like after I started, it was just a flow. It didn't. I didn't have to think what was coming next or how I was going to present certain information. what happened a couple of times is that I got opportunities to improvise and just say something silly, or at some point I was saying like, and then you turn the left, and then I realized I was pointing at my right, and then he said, "Oh Jesus," and like, that's not the left. Or just saying something silly and then immediately making a joke about it, like you're about to step on a snake, and then you look up, and I was like, "No, why would you look up? There's a snake on the floor." So jokes like that I just improvised, and everybody laughed. And then I was talking about the cat. I was talking about Salem, and I could hear that the audience was like, "Aww." So it felt like it had a laughter, it had awe, it had like this tension, this things that you don't know what's going to happen, like the sadness, a bunch of different things. And I was so excited. I was so excited because this was happening through me. And I continued. And then at some point I realized, oh, this is the last story. Oh no. I was like really, really coming present to the moment and telling the story. By then, really satisfied of how everything had gone. And at no point, and now I'm thinking like, how did that happen? At no point I thought that this could be fucked up. Like that this could be ruined somehow, or that I could stumble and not stick the landing or something like that. At no point crossed my mind. I was very confident that this was going to go perfectly. And this was the spirits talking, because really I had no proof in me that I was going to stick the landing. But I told the last story, I told the last pieces, and ended on a really philosophical note. And then said thank you, and then it was like the applause, and people were like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "Whoa, it happened!" And then it happened in perfect timing as well. I had 25 minutes, and I did it in 24 minutes, 35 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it was great timing. And then I had time for Q&A. And I got 2 questions because I took too long to answer them. Some people would just get like 5, 6 questions because they answered in one sentence. I told a story.
And you got one question, which was, you want to?
Well, I got the first question was like, how do you understand, like, distinguish intuition from being scared or something like that? And I told the answer to that. And then, do you want to tell the other question?
Yeah, and then another guy was asking a question, which was sort of along the lines, I don't know exactly, but it was that he was asking, so you mean you're following your intuition, but what if you don't believe in that there's a higher power, that there's this intuition, and why do you think that makes even sense? Why should I follow anything that's there? I don't really get it. So why even trusting?
It was a bit different, the question, as I remember it.
Yeah.
It was, I asked a lot of people, he started something like that. I asked a lot of people if there's a meaning to life. I asked millionaires, I asked friends of mine, everybody. I even questioned myself if there's a meaning to life. Is this everything that we're doing? Is it pointless? And he was almost like breaking down as he was saying this. Like his voice was shaking a bit. And he was saying, well, it's a pretty philosophical question, but do you think life is pointless?
So he went really deep
into
almost a little bit depressive, existentialist thought. Like, does anything make sense?
Yeah. And I don't know what took me over in that moment, but I was very clear on what I needed to say. And I responded.
You said, "Oh, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for your question."
And then?
you have a choice to make. And I proceeded to explain the different choices that he has. One path where he can decide that life is meaningless and he will feel alone and isolated and like nothing makes sense and everything that he does is pointless. Or one life where there is meaning and we are connected and whatever you do on earth actually has an impact, whether for you or for the world. And acting accordingly, how that is going to affect your relationships and the quality of your life. And in that moment, then I said, you get to decide, but I would suggest you try it on this option, the option where life has a meaning, and see how it feels. And if you like it more, you can keep it. I said something along those lines. And
the whole theater felt a relief because everybody noticed that was a deep question and he was like struggling and was doubting himself. And with that question, you sort of took this like difficult tension out of the room. As we heard also a lot afterwards, awesome guy was really seeing that you took on the difficult question, you understood the deeper levels of the question and answered to the deeper level of it, which relieved him, I think, but also the whole theater, which was so interesting.
Mm-hmm. And this, I feel like it's a question that we ask ourselves at some point in our lives, like everybody. Maybe he had that question in that moment and it was coming from a really depressive place, but everybody has it to an extent. It's like, is what we're doing pointless? Is it? So yeah, that was really, really good. And I remember I ended that answer with, life can be really meaningful if you give it meaning. And I just like ended it there. And I was like, the audacity to do those things. I was like, oh my God, who's this chick? And what did you do with Carolina? Just ending in those Yoda moments. I was like, okay, whatever. I don't know who she is, but I like her. Let's keep her around. And it was very exciting. It was very nice to let those words just come out. And then afterwards there was like this big applause, and then there were people waiting to talk to me. So kind, like the team of that stage, like the sound check guy and the girls, they were all super nice, and it was like, that's so nice, like coming out of a football match where you've scored a goal, you know. And afterwards I was so calm and so happy, and I felt so curious to hear about people. And then a lot of people wanted to talk, and then I was just listening. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with my job. I was so happy. Like that started something a completely different trip, because before I was so concerned about the talk, and then afterwards I was like, the talk is done. Now let's live life.
And it was so interesting because you were still in that heightened state of consciousness from being on stage and super alert, and at the same time being able to like fully be yourself. So we're within yourself, not like spread out and listening to other people who were caught up in their stories. No, you were centered. And so when you were listening, it was very clear to me the way you were listening. It was very obvious that the person was sharing and trying to connect with you, and you were like very interested and curious, but still centered. You're not fully like excited and thank you that you love it and like needy or anything like that. You're just very centered and calm. Yeah. Which is kind of phenomenal right after such a talk.
It was bananas. Yeah. Like the whole experience was bananas. It was different. It was different. And I felt it before, during, and after, that this was a big jump. in my career, that there was a before and after, because I always thought I wanted to do this, like, or at least for maybe 8 years. I've been thinking that I wanted to do this, but this was the confirmation. I was on a big stage. I was doing a TED Talk format, and it was a confirmation. I liked it. I loved it. And also it felt that a lot of the things that I've been working towards, to being present, being comfortable on stage, being in connection with my ancestors, and speaking from a grounded perspective, all of those things I've been working through all my life, like it came together. So it was really, really meaningful. I loved it. And that's the story of the talk.
And after this now, what is the most profound part of this experience that left an impression on you?
I think the feeling that I was just given all of this wisdom that maybe I don't have in the day-to-day life, but in that moment I was asking for my ancestors to support me in this because I want to be of service. And I felt their support, and I felt that I wasn't alone, and I felt it wasn't Carolina on stage. I felt it was way more than Carolina. And I was like that was a mystical experience, because it was not just me. It was me, but every generation that came before me. And it was me and the wisdom of the earth. It was me and the wisdom of everybody that was there. And there was this deeper knowing, energetically and also through words, that was being shared, and this environment that was being created. And that was the most profound thing. Like, I don't necessarily stick to the words that I used or the concepts that I spoke about. It was more about that feeling of being held and being carried by all of these forces. That was awesome. And then that also told me, like, yeah, this is what I'm here for, bitches. I loved it.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking. Yeah. And then after that, it was just coming down to a new reality. Usually after a big thing like that, there's a plateau. You reach a plateau where you are calming down after a big sprint. And it was nice to, the last couple of days of the festival, we just hanged out with people, enjoyed other talks. It was nice. Then we traveled back to Germany, and we had a first. That was great. Our first experience hitchhiking. That was pretty fun. Also giving a bit of nervousness, because it was like, oh dude, like, are we really just like putting our hand out there to cars?
And they stop actually, and they're nice people in there.
Yeah. Well, that was the good part. But before, it was just in my head, I was like, oh fuck, are we really doing this? And because I almost challenged you,
yeah,
I was like, I cannot chicken out. I need to do it at least once.
Yeah.
So then he thinks I'm like, oh yeah, this is I got this.
And then you did it. And they didn't stop.
Yeah, it was a truck. I did it first with the truck, and then the truck said that they only had room for 1%. So then they continued. And then you did it.
And then I did it. And then the other person that drove by also didn't stop and signaled something, whatever. I don't know, that she didn't have time or something. And then the next person stopped.
Yeah.
It was like 3
cars.
I was stunned how quickly that happened.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I was thinking of like maybe 20, maybe 30 minutes that we need to wait until somebody stops. But 3 cars in like, what, 3 minutes? No.
Nothing.
A minute.
A minute.
Crazy.
Yeah, it took us nothing.
And then there was this super cute old grandpa that was just saying, oh yeah, I think I would have liked if somebody would have stopped for me as well. I was like, oh, you're so cute. Thank you. And now we had this like 5-minute chat with him while he was driving us home. And
Yeah.
he was so nice and just telling him about his friend who was also living in Spain for doing his own beer. And I don't know, it's just fun.
Yeah.
It was so nice.
And this would have been like a 1 hour something walk with the bags and being tired because we had 20 hours traveling already.
Because here in the middle of nowhere, there's no Uber, there's taxi was there in 40 minutes. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, there's no way that we can get from here now somewhere else, except some kind soul is going to take us.
Yes.
And a very, very kind soul took us.
That was so nice. And I think that for me, the lesson in that was don't overthink it. Just do it. Just give it a shot. Like you get the impulse, don't overthink it. Because I was starting to freak out internally. I was like,
Same.
Oh no.
Chickening out and like
Chickening out, like, oh no, this is weird. Why would you do that? It's like a hippie thing to do, whatever. Like all the prejudice or imaginations that I had just came up. And then I was like, okay, no, shut up. Like, I don't want to walk in the sun for an hour with the backpacks after traveling for 20 hours. No. Let's just hitchhike. It's the best option. And we leave it to the universe to decide.
And the universe was in our favor. Very kind to us.
It's like, there you go, darling. I was like, thank you. Oh, you're so kind. Yes.
Yeah.
And here we are in Germany for about a week. And we are a mess. We cannot find a routine anymore since we left Spain. It's in Spain we had figured to have a routine, and now we have to start from scratch because we had a pretty big pattern interrupt in between. And now it's all about chilling, napping.
Well, now it's super hot also.
Yes.
I have a weird schedule when working now. It's odd with my parents living here. It does do something as well that shakes up the routine. So yeah, we're now again figuring it out and seeing what well, I'm not only seeing that I'll figure out going back to normal, but seeing, okay, what else can I explore? Now I just today started with also reading around before after the meditation, which is also kind of nice to get an input from a good book for something to learn, or I don't know. I was reading something about my personality, and that was interesting. And so that gives input for the meditation and afterwards. Mm-hmm. And so I'm seeing also the opportunities of finding a new routine.
Yeah. Not being attached to what we had in Spain. Even though it was really nice, and I want to go back to that at some point, or something similar. Just like finding ourselves again. Like, I need to figure out my new life. Yeah, and now I'm a speaker, like I did one talk and I'm a speaker. And there's this, well, there's a pattern interrupt, and then there's also the identity shift. Like, oh, I decided to become a new person.
Yeah.
This experience changed me. So now it's about inquiring and being patient and figuring it out slowly.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds like a round episode.
Yeah, that's our diary. That's what we've been up to. And Julian, along all of my talk madness, he was the production assistant, and he was recording with a camera a lot of snippets, and he was helping me out in any way that he could. He was the sweetest. So shout out to Julian, the most supportive partner in the world. Mwah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anytime. Okay. Then thank you for sharing all of these incredible insights from the inside from that stage experience. And talk to you, listener, next week.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.